Hey everybody, welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. We have Mary Trump back with us today. We'll chat with Mary in just a moment. But first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please rate and review and follow or subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. So Mary Trump is an American psychologist and author. Her first book, Too Much and Never Enough, How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man, which sold nearly 1 million copies on its first day of publication, is considered a serious game changer in the 2020 U.S. presidential elections that Donald Trump lost decisively to Joe Biden. She is the author of 2 other New York Times bestsellers, The Reckoning and a memoir, Who Could Ever Love You? Mary holds a PhD in clinical psychology and a master's degree in English and Comparative Literature from Columbia University. She writes The Good in Us, a best-selling newsletter on Substack, and is the founder of Mary Trump Media and the Mary Trump Media YouTube channel. Mary, welcome back into the back room.
Thanks, Eddie. It was really good to be here.
Well, I said to you before we got on that I already feel good the minute I see you.
I'm glad. I wish more people had that reaction with this. So.
Well, there's so much to discuss, but I have to ask you perhaps the most important question in the country that I could ask you right now, and that is, tonight's the premiere of the Melania documentary. Do you have your ticket?
Yeah. Oh, as you can imagine, I'm going to be a VIP at that event.
You're in that roped off aisle.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yes, I am indeed roped off.
Keyword rope.
Yeah. Yes. I sadly though can't make it because I had already planned to pound nails in the back of my hand.
Yeah, I was going to say I'd rather jab an ice pick into my eyeballs, but
that works too.
That works, yeah. I'm an atheist. I'm not a man of faith. But if there's a God above, may she tank the shit out of this movie.
Yeah, I'm also an atheist, so I hopefully it doesn't require a higher power. It just requires people thinking she's so vile and uninteresting and vapid that they wouldn't want to subject themselves to this nonsense. Although on the other hand, though, and this is sort of the depressing part, I don't think she cares. She got her cool $40 million for nothing. Thanks, Jeff Bezos. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just telling somebody before that having made a documentary myself, which HBO funded, $40 million for a documentary, and then like $35 million on top of that for promotion and marketing.
Well,
man, that is just like...
I mean, that's unheard of, right? That's unheard of.
Unheard of.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you go to Sundance and there's a bidding war and you get 10 or 11 million for it, but like, and that's like a movie that actually has some substance and some viable commercial potential. This is just like it just seems like a bribe. Another one of Bezos's little bribes. In his sad, pathetic little existence now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I vacillate, so obvious.
I vacillate between thinking, like what you said, like hopefully nobody wants to see this. But then it's like half of America put him in the White House twice. And if those people are like, yeah, this is going to be a great movie, I don't know. But I think the tell is when he tweets like 5 days ago that you better get your tickets because they're selling quickly, which is really not how movies work, right? Like it's not like a one-night concert. Like it's going to sell out. Like it's going to open up in what, 1,000, 2,000 theaters across the country? Like who buys tickets to movies in advance anymore, right? So
I think it's very unlikely
means it's bombing in his mind.
Yeah, unless it's, Avatar or something, and you have, or, new Star Wars thing, and you have people lining up the night before, what have you. No, people don't buy movies in advance, especially when they know that the movie theater will likely be empty.
Right.
So,
well, we do get, Box Office Mojo. I mean, there are websites and Hollywood Reporter and Variety and other media outlets who report on box office numbers. So we're going to know. Like, he's not going to be able to fudge these numbers.
Oh, it is going to be the most successful movie ever made. It's like nothing you've ever seen before. All of that. It's the same shit that he says about the economy, which is all a lie. And he continues to hope that enough people are going to believe him instead of what they actually see, instead of the actual data, instead of their actual own lived experiences. Like, he can say all he wants that prices are down, but if people's paychecks aren't stretching as far as they used to, they may actually believe that things are more expensive.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the thing that keeps me sane is I look at him and I see a man who's desperate, who's flailing, who's
yep.
trying to distract away from Epstein, distract away from his chaos in Minneapolis, the tragedies there.
Yep. Yep.
But the reason why his popularity is so low, the reason why he's underwater on his signature issues of immigration, crime, inflation, bringing down grocery prices, et cetera, is based on what you just said. That the people in this country have eyes, they have ears, they have pocketbooks, they go shopping, they know what's true and what's bullshit. And so it's almost like you have to be a horse with blinders, just filter out his noise, stay focused on what's real. We know the numbers, right? We see where he is or isn't popular. We see what's happening with the Republican Party. We've seen all the special elections of the last year and a half. We saw last November election results. It's not a good time to be Donald Trump and the Republican Party, which is why I think we're seeing so much of what we're seeing. So, as his approval sinks and the picture gets worse for them, that's when it seems like the chaos just amplifies.
Yeah, well, you nailed it. He's desperate. And he's desperate because he's losing control of the narrative in a way he never has before. And he's also losing control of himself in a way that on some deep level he's aware of. So that's, I think, one of the reasons we see him floundering. We see him increasingly incoherent and delusional and constantly trying to change the subject and doubling down on some of his worst qualities, the cruelty. And, anybody who thinks that he or Tom Homan will be a moderating influence in terms of ICE has not been paying attention to what these people actually always do, which is make things worse, become more cruel, become more vicious, become more violent, because that's also another way of deflecting away from his increasing failures.
Yeah, that's a good point. Although I will say, and maybe this will make me sound naive, I do think there's a difference between him and Homan. Homan worked in the Obama administration. He was always thought of as a decent guy. I mean, we may not agree with some people on the right with their tactics or their opinions, their philosophies, whatever. Sometimes their language is a little incendiary, perhaps. I think that, on some level is to be expected with these people. But I do think today, Homan was trying to turn the temperature down a little. His boss, unfortunately, threw him under the bus later that day and pretty much contradicted everything he said about, scaling back the amount of agents in Minneapolis and so forth. But Trump, to your point, like when we talk about, like, is he going to pivot? Is he going to turn down the temperature? Well, after his supposed big pivot where he was going to turn down the temperature, what did he do? Representative Ilhan Omar was assaulted at her town hall. He posted that she's a fraud and probably sprayed herself. Okay.
Yes.
That's number one. Yesterday, he called Alex Preddy an insurrectionist. An insurrectionist. This is a guy who pardoned 1,500 actual Capitol storming insurrectionists.
And this is a guy who is himself an insurrectionist.
Yeah.
So that's
so you can almost I can feel the temperature lowering already. It's getting chilly in here, right? So that's never going to happen. Like we always hear about him. Is the pivot coming? There's no pivot because with him, the cruelty and the chaos is the very blood that runs through his veins. It's the air he breathes. He can't, even if he wanted to, because there's like a trigger. I mean, you're a professional. With him, I call him a sociopath. People call him a malignant narcissist. There's something definitely wrong with him, big time. Psycho, whatever. Pick your poison. But he can't help himself. If the minute something doesn't go his way or he hears something, he goes into that default mode. And that default mode is to attack, to demean people, to threaten. And he could walk into a room with a whole different set of priorities and intentions. But within seconds, it could go out the window. So that's why we never see a pivot. We never see accepting blame. We never see being accountable for anything. We never see a lowering of a temperature. Never, ever. And it's never going to happen. to the contrary, it's only going to get worse, which leads me to my
Yes.
next question, which is about his physical and mental health, because there's been a lot of talk about what happens with people with dementia. You know, his father had it, your
Right,
grandfather.
yeah.
And a lot of the experts will say, professionals will say that, you know, when you have dementia, you start losing it to the point where you can become very aggressive, you can become dangerous, you can do things that are just not rational. And I want to know from your perspective, is that what we're seeing right now, where like he is suffering from something? I don't know what it is, but what do you make of it right now?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, the most important thing right now for us to understand about Donald, because we've got 3 more years at least to go of this. So he's always, there's no worst. You know, there's no point at which you could say, oh, well, you know, he can't get any worse than that. Yes, he can, and he always will. Because, one, because the cruelty and the chaos you mentioned benefits him, or at least he thinks it does. Also, because, as I said, he is sort of losing control of the narrative, which is making him more desperate. But in the context of what you're discussing in terms of his decline, his deterioration, there are 3 different areas here. Donald is somebody, and I've never diagnosed him for the very simple reason that you can't diagnose somebody who's not your patient and whom you can't assess. Diagnosis is a process. It's not like you could just look at somebody and say, oh, they're that. No, you have to be tested, and the data need to be analyzed. It's a very lengthy process, but there's also this point at which it doesn't matter what exactly he is. We see the damage he's doing. However, he does have serious, long-standing, undiagnosed and untreated psychiatric disorders. What happens when you have an illness that doesn't get treated over time? It gets worse. So that's all been getting worse for a long time now. In conjunction with that, we have what seems clear to be, I mean, I'm not a medical doctor, but I think we can all look at him and realize he's getting less healthy by the day. He has obvious issues going on. We have had medical doctors point out the fact that you don't get a preventative MRI. You get a MRI if the doctor thinks something's wrong. You don't get a Montreal cognitive assessment unless a doctor thinks that there might be some issues with your cognitive abilities. So on top of that, then, of course, you have my family history of Alzheimer's, which I'm truly hoping is going to skip my generation, or at least me. And I see similarities between how he's behaving and how my grandfather behaved. You know, often when my grandfather, he started getting Alzheimer's when he was probably in his late 70s, around Donald's age. And by the time he was in his mid 80s, he was having a much harder time being around people, like out in the world and around crowds. And he would get this deer in the headlights look, as if he suddenly didn't know where he was or why he was there or who he was with. And those are the only times I ever saw my grandfather look afraid. I see that sometimes with Donald. He doesn't seem to be oriented all the time to time and place. He's forgetting people's names. He said Greenland was Iceland 4 times. And also there's this sense of not understanding the occasion. Like, he's in Davos talking about the fact that he believes the 2020 election was stolen. That's not why he was there. Nobody wants to hear that at Davos.
He did that on the red carpet last night at Melania's premiere. He was talking about Georgia, and she's standing next to him, and I was thinking, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen, and also the scariest.
Right, because she's probably thinking, wait a minute, this is all about me.
Yeah, shut the fuck up and let me have my moment. You know?
Exactly, but she's not ever going to have her moment. Anyway, so the interesting thing is that as my grandfather got older and worse, as he started to forget people he'd known for decades, his grandchildren, and in some cases his children, he had a very significant personality shift. He was a sociopath. He was a cold, unaffectionate, cruel man who liked nothing more. Well, the thing he liked more was making money. The thing he liked next to that was humiliating people he had in his control.
Sounds
like
familiar.
My dad, for example. Doesn't it just? So my grandfather became this docile, sweet old man, and who never treated me better than he did when he forgot who I was. He would call me the nice lady. And There were still moments, though, usually late at night when he was home alone with my grandmother, when he would have these fits of rage and become very paranoid. He would accuse her of stealing his checkbook. He was terrified that he was going broke and that all of his money had been stolen and he was poor. So other than that, though, his general demeanor was completely different from the man he had been. With Donald, what I'm seeing, and again, he's still, he's not in his mid 80s yet, so who knows what could happen. But right now, it seems like we're seeing a worsening of his deep-seated character flaws. He's becoming more cruel. He's becoming more erratic. He's becoming more threatening. And, of course, more corrupt and greedier, which is really saying something. So I don't know if there's ever going to be a shift to a more benign. I mean, maybe it will be when he forgets everybody. I don't know, but it's not happening right now, which is very bad.
He's doing really weird things. Like, for example, he called Biden Sleepy Joe, but like he seems to be falling asleep everywhere. Is falling asleep a symptom of the kind of mental decline that you're talking about?
Yeah, hypersomnia, excessive sleepiness, and falling asleep during the day is absolutely a symptom of such things. So he can say all he wants. He fell asleep during a cabinet meeting because it was boring. But in what universe does Donald think it's boring when a room full of people are talking about how great he is?
Yeah, so, or just, what? You're the leader of the free world. If you're bored, I would assume you have a lot to do. Call the meeting.
Yes.
Okay, just end the meeting and say, thank you very much, and go back to the Oval and do your work.
Although that's hard to do when you're asleep. So.
But that sleep is his choice. That's it. I was bored, so as president, I just took a nap. Like,
yeah.
Like instead of just saying goodbye, I got work to do. I've done that when I was in business. I was like, okay, I got to go. This meeting has to end now. Okay, we all have a lot of work to do. It's kind of crazy.
But that suggests he's in charge of anything. So
Yeah. What about like that meeting a couple of weeks ago where he just got up from the table and walked over to the window and was like, "Oh, look out there, the ballroom." Who the fuck does that?
Yeah,
that was crazy. That was bizarre.
The CEOs of oil companies, after he'd essentially taken over Venezuela and kidnapped the Venezuelan president, just rambles around, goes to the window where there's literally just like piles of dirt, talking about how awesome it is. And nobody knew what to say or what to do. But of course, they also know that he's the guy who can enrich them further if they don't cross him or humiliate him. And that was the same meeting when Marco Rubio slid him a note, a private communication that Donald then read out loud because apparently he doesn't understand. I mean, it's just...
Or to your point, did he used to understand, but he doesn't understand anymore? Because there's something really wrong with him.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to understand how things work. He has very little impulse control at any point because, maybe he was just thinking, hey, I want to go check out the ballroom or the pit in which the ballroom is going to be built. But I should do that right now, because I'm at this meeting with oil CEOs, just like at Davos. I really want to talk about the 2020 election and how it was stolen from me because I just can't get over it. But I'm here to talk about invading Greenland. So he just doesn't, he's losing the thread. It seems, with increasing and alarming frequency.
It's really interesting what you said about the oil companies, because we have to really stop and think about this, that this was after the United States conducted a military operation to go into a sovereign nation, seize its president, bring him back to the United States for prosecution. And supposedly this meeting was to help figure out what are we going to do with American oil companies and the oil that's down there and he's walking to the window and looking out the window. I mean, the gravity of that moment, of what they were discussing, and his behavior during the meeting, it was just, I still am stunned by that. That moment, I think, more than anything, made me go, oh, geez.
Yeah, and
Mayor
that
Trump.
reminded me of my grandfather too. There was one time we were at my grandparents' house, and my grandfather would get sort of fixated on things, and he had ripped a picture of a Cadillac out of a magazine, and he walks over to Rob and Donald, and he's telling them how much likes this car and how much he wants this car, like he's a child. And that kind of thing happened again with increasing frequency as he became less mentally grounded as his condition deteriorated. And that what Donald did, just the way he just sort of shuffled over and felt like, everybody is here to kind of pay attention to me, and whatever I'm fixated on is something everybody else should be paying attention to. But what's interesting, as my grandfather started to do those kinds of things, my Uncle Rob would try to, just sort of make him feel better. Sure, Dad, yeah, whatever you want, Pop, but yeah, we'll get a car for you. Donald would just walk out, leave him alone because he just didn't want to be bothered. So, just another sign that he's a very cruel man. And I don't believe that anybody is going to be there for him in the same way he wasn't there for my grandfather.
Yeah. So. You also just said something a minute ago that it kind of hit me. And that was when you spoke about your grandfather becoming like a sweet old man who was suffering, and he just sort of became like, that way. That in a way was the window moment, where he's just like a little kid going over the window, and like all these business titans were around him, and this is after an invasion of another country. And he's like, oh yeah, the ballroom's going. Like, is it possible that like that's kind of a moment that you were talking about your grandfather, where like, because it was like a sweet, jovial, like silly kind of, it wasn't like angry, nasty, racist Trump moment. It was something different. And I don't know, maybe only time will tell if we see more of those kinds of things where he just deviates, or even the Marco Rubio thing. That could be like, hey, look, Marco, pass me it out.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't cruel. It wasn't like mean-spirited. It was almost like a little kid who just does something stupid in like a sweet way. So I don't know. That's a really interesting observation. And I wonder if we're going to see more of that kind of thing, where you just go, what is that about? Like,
yeah, I think we will. But it's not going to be a significant counterbalance to the other stuff, right?
Yes.
And also, when you think about it, with the exception of that, I'm sure there have been other instances, when he was sort of going off about talking about Creedmoor Psych Hospital and Little League, and his mother said
wild.
that. Yeah, that was wild.
So if I could just ask you, what did you make of that? Because that was almost like he was on a psychiatrist's couch, and he went back in time, and we were like, oh my God, we're going on this psychological ride with him that we've never heard him talk like that before.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is probably the most obvious thing, that it was wildly inappropriate, and it didn't make any sense, and it was, in my view, diagnostic, that there's something seriously, seriously wrong here, and he is not aware. He's not aware at all.
Is that typical of people who are going through some kind of dementia thing or early onset Alzheimer's, like where people who normally repress things, especially about a traumatic childhood, all of a sudden they start sharing these things with the world out of nowhere?
Yeah, I'm not a neuropsychologist or neurologist, so I can't speak really too much about that, other than the experiences I had witnessing my grandfather go through this. And yeah, like there's, I think this is also true with most people who get older. They become very nostalgic for the past, but I think with people with dementia and Alzheimer's, it's sort of where they live, increasingly as their conditions deteriorate. So we do hear more of Donald engaging in this kind of these bizarre tangents and asides. So he also and we've seen this in different contexts, he seems obsessed with the idea of what he refers to as insane asylums and insane people. And we know that he has a close personal relationship with a fictional serial killer named Hannibal Lecter.
Great guy.
So
great guy,
yes,
that Hannibal.
Hey, he
The
he
late
knew
great Hannibal Lecter.
knew how to cook a meal. Yeah. So perhaps the only
that
person
joke
with a
never
less
gets old,
healthy
by the
diet.
way.
It doesn't. So I think that between that and these other instances in which he seems completely unmoored from the present moment or what is appropriate in the context of whatever else he is supposed to be doing, is very alarming. Is it? It's not alarming because, as you say, it sort of shows this kind of more benign side of him. He's not threatening. He's not invading. He's not stealing in those moments. But a lot of the times it is also, though, still about pumping himself up. And, with the CEOs, he was talking about that great ballroom, which is, and he has admitted this, a monument to himself.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still the grandiosity and the narcissism and the megalomania. And also, of course, there's the fact that this is the president of the United States whose brain seems to be bleeding out of his ears with increasing frequency, who has massive amounts of power and commands the strongest, most lethal military on the planet. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing benign about that.
No. Do you find it interesting that he's been starting to talk about his father's dementia?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of a piece with other things I've noticed. He's starting to talk about things that he has done has spent lots of psychic energy over the decades suppressing, but it's breaking through. And I think that suggests that it's really on his mind. And
is it possible it's breaking through because, to your point a second ago, he's such a narcissist that it's all about him. So now he may be aware that he's suffering from something very similar to what his dad was suffering from.
I think it's because he's not aware, and he does know something's wrong, and he needs to do what he is his sort of default and try to get ahead of it and change the narrative. So, first of all, he couldn't remember the word Alzheimer's,
right?
When he was talking about my grandfather's Alzheimer's, and what did he say immediately? Oh, I don't have that.
Yeah, not a good sign when you're talking about Alzheimer's and you can't remember the word Alzheimer's, right? Like,
well,
not to make light of a situation, but like that was a really telling moment right there for me.
It was. It was absolutely telling, and that is just another indicator that things are that he is in decline, and it's not like you have these moments of decline and then you can get better. It's not. I'm not saying he will be in steady decline. There are good moments and bad moments, and good days and bad days. But the bad days will become more frequent. The good days will become fewer, etc. And it then remains to be seen. I guess the question mark is, will that have a mitigating factor on the awful things that he does that we are so familiar with?
Yeah. Now, I know you're not a medical doctor, so this can only be speculation amongst us, but there's some physical situations that have become very glaring over the last year. We have the discolored hand and the lame excuses like it's too much handshaking or he banged it on a table. And the Kenkel situation, which they've insisted is chronic venous insufficiency and benign. But when you factor in all the cognitive testing he brags about that he's had and all the tests he's aced, the unexplained MRI and all the other Walter Reed visits and tests, the mysterious 3-day disappearances, the fact that he's a pathological liar. So when a pathological liar and the sycophants around him throw the word benign around, when I hear that, he's not making it till Christmas. Like...
Well,
right? I mean, isn't it safe to just assume, like, if a pathological liar says it's benign, it's nothing, that they're really hiding something major?
They
escape
are.
That.
There's no doubt they're hiding something major because It's like the Epstein files. If there was nothing to worry about, he would have released them when he said he was going to.
Absolutely.
And now, the release of the Epstein files, the 3 million pages they released today, I think, well, we can't trust his DOJ farther than we can throw it. So this is, again, just they're using the thing they've been trying to distract us from in order to distract us by releasing so many documents, most of which I'm sure are heavily redacted and exonerate him and implicate other people. So it's the same thing. If the picture of health, and we see how many people are willing to lie for him. A doctor who also treated Barack Obama said without hesitation that Donald is healthier than Obama. Are you insane? And why do you still have a medical license is my question. So here's a very easy way to prove that it's benign and he's the healthiest person on the planet. Release all the records. Tell us why he got an MRI. Tell us why they keep asking him to take cognitive assessment exams. Just tell us. And if you can show us the data, cool. We can move on. And look, don't get me wrong. Every administration lies about the president's health to one degree or another.
Mm-hmm.
But this is different. This is nefarious, and it seems like the stuff we're dealing with is more serious. I think I've heard a couple of medical doctors saying that they believe that he had a stroke a few months ago, and they made it clear why. And I've heard other medical doctors say that if you're prescribing another cognitive assessment and an MRI, that's a post-stroke protocol. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter because we know that certainly Caroline Leavitt and others are going to lie to us in the most shameless way, right? So it's sort of like his psychiatric issues. Do we need a diagnosis? No, we see it. We see the deterioration. We see the decline. We see the cankles. We see the bruises on his hands. We see the sleeping during the daytime over which he has no control.
Which is worsening and worsening every day.
Worsening every day. We see his alarming and increasing tendency to go off on these quite insane, they're insane, these tangents he goes off on. And yet apparently that is not
You mean the weave?
Yes. Yes, the weave. Oh my God.
That's a psychiatric term, isn't it?
Sure. Let's make it one. I like that. So what remains troubling, I mean, it's all troubling, but what makes it worse is that corporate media is not concerned about it, not to the same degree they were concerned about Joe Biden. And that is mystifying.
Well, is it mystifying in the sense of what we've just witnessed this morning with the breaking news that Don Lemon's been arrested? Maybe,
yeah.
On a limb, maybe it's just that the journalism industry is a little afraid of getting arrested by Donald Trump, so they don't really lay into him that hard.
Yeah, I'm willing to admit, because unlike anybody else in my family, I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong. That was like one of the stupidest things I ever said. It's not mystifying at all. It's clear that the corporate media for a very long time now has made it clear that it's picked a side and it's not us.
Yeah.
Not mystifying, just crazy.
Same with corporate America, the tech titans,
indeed.
So where does this go? Like, how degenerative is his situation, do you think? And again, I know this is just generalizations because you haven't diagnosed him, but just from what you see, is this the kind of thing where 6 months from now we're going to be going, oh my God, what we were talking about in January was nothing compared to this?
Oh yeah, because it's inevitable. Now, again, it depends on what kind of mitigations are in place, because as we know, anybody else who had as severe a case of COVID as he did would have been dead. Mm-hmm. He has the best healthcare on the planet.
Yeah.
So who knows what efforts are being made to slow things down or what have you. I don't know. But I think we can say that the efforts being made are Herculean because he has access to everything. Everything.
I heard he has United Healthcare Platinum.
See?
Just a rumor. Just a rumor. That's what I heard.
Yeah. Well, see, I would have thought gold. Because he doesn't seem to understand that platinum is more valuable.
Yeah.
But anyway, he likes it's shinier.
He probably would have gone for gold. I want gold. Sir, it's not as good as platinum. I want gold. Gold's the best.
Yes. And then he would have put it on the wall. His United Healthcare.
His
gold
literal
card.
policy would have been on the wall. Framed.
But again, despite all of that, he's definitely getting worse. So the deterioration is unmistakable, and the lies are going to stop. I think they already have stopped working. They're not having the same impact that they used to have in convincing people that all is well. And it's the same thing we're seeing with the economy, with the situation with ICE, and of course with his dangerous and shameful and humiliating performance on the world stage. People are starting not to believe him over their own lived experience anymore.
Do you have any faith that congressional Republicans at some point, if the situation worsens, will pull the plug on him somehow? Or do you think we're just gonna this ship is gonna just run aground and what happens happens?
I have zero faith in congressional Republicans. They're around the edges. Some of them may come to the conclusion, as people sometimes do with Donald, that it is no longer of use to them to continue this transactional relationship they're in with him. But we have to remember that Senate Republicans are in the same bubble that Senate Democrats are in. Like, you would think that to a person, Senate Democrats would understand what's at stake and what needs to be done. And yet they're still trying to negotiate with these fascists about ICE and continuing to fund DHS for 2 more weeks while they try to hammer things out. It's just absurd. They just don't seem to respond to reality in the way the rest of us do. The same is true with Senate Republicans. I don't necessarily think they understand to the degree they should just how bad things are and how bad it will be for them if they continue down this road. That doesn't mean something won't change. I mean, I've tried to think of the one thing he could do that would force them to put a stop to it. But what else could it possibly be? Look at all the horrors he has committed and sanctioned.
The only thing that could happen, and I'm not even sure, this is crazy that I'm saying this, I'm not sure that would change anything, but if he was in some kind of public meeting or whatever and he used the N-word.
It's funny. I've thought if, with the Access Hollywood tape, if he had used the C word instead of the word he used. Oh, seriously? See, I think that would have made a difference. I don't necessarily think that's true anymore. I don't think the N-word will make a difference anymore. I cannot believe I'm saying that. I think it would have to be something like really humiliating and visual that you can't come back from. And I don't want to say what I have in mind out loud because I don't want to put that picture in anybody's head. But you can imagine something that shows just how out of control he is. I wish I could say with confidence that the N-word would make a difference. I just don't. He's literally going around saying the Civil Rights Act was terrible because it just harmed white people so much.
That's certainly one way to look at it. Not the right way.
It is.
Not a rational way, but it is a way.
If you're somebody who goes around using the N-word.
Yeah.
Which
that certainly would be a precursor to saying the N-word. Like, if he says that, it's not so out of the question that he would say the N-word. That's what's really scary about where we are in this country today, that we are sitting here saying that if the United States president throws around the N-word after all the other shit he's done and it still won't matter, wow. That's kind of
think about, and I think why we're here is because, again, he's very good at pushing the envelope in a way that sort of gets people used to things. And how many times have we heard from the media, well, it's just baked in. People know that about him. It doesn't matter. What do you mean it doesn't matter? It doesn't matter that he's a misogynist and a rapist and an adjudicated rapist and a racist. And it doesn't matter. Okay. And then, of course, the heavy lifting corporate media has done to normalize him over these many, many, many years. So, yeah, here we are. It may not make a difference if he ever did say something like that out loud.
Well, the interesting thing is, and I'm still holding out hope for this, is that I think the thing that can and will bring him down is those Epstein files. Because for whatever reason, that's the hill MAGA wanted to die on. You know, that matters more to them than anything. And I've talked to MAGA people, and that's the thing that he promised them. He jacked them up on. They were waiting for it. They all did. Bondi, all of them. And now it's like, we lied. Nothing to see here. Go away. And they don't like that. And I'm happy at least there's something that they're really pissed off about, aside from maybe the price of eggs, which I'm hoping it's still about the economy, stupid. Yeah. But I don't know. But Mary, it's always really therapeutic for me to talk with you. You should send me an invoice, really.
No, let's just go have coffee or something.
Let's do it.
Nope,
all righty.
No invoice required.
Good to see you again. Come back soon.
Thanks, Andy.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
This episode was produced and edited by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-produced by Maddie Rosenberg and Jen Hammoud for Radio Free Rhinecliff, with additional editing by Maddie Rosenberg, music by Andrew Hollander, and graphic design by Cricket Langell. And with a special thanks to our sponsor, The Epicurean. Again, thanks for listening. Please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the Backroom with Andy Ostroy YouTube channel, where you can watch full videos of our interviews. See you next time.